Hey everyone, how's it going? Forrest here again with another installment of my complete analysis of all 389 Bach chorale harmonizations. Today we're looking at Vom Himmel hoch, da komm ich her, which translates to From heaven above to earth I come. We have a fairly straightforward chorale to analyze today. Not too many interesting tidbits about it in comparison to some of the more interesting ones we've looked at recently. Definitely a delight to analyze after a long day. Two sharps in the key signature. We start and end on D major. I think it's pretty clear that we're in the key of D major here. A, E, A, and C sharp. That's an A major triad in root position, or a 5 chord. Passing G sharp in the alto, that's a little interesting, considering we are in D major, and we have G sharp in the bass as well. So one might think that we were actually a little bit in A in here, but the melody sounds pretty undeniably in the key of D major for this entire phrase, so the fact that the harmony is disagreeing with that a little bit, I think is more so Bach's doing rather than the melody's construction. We then have G sharp, D, F sharp, and B. That is a G sharp diminished 7th chord, or it's half diminished, so we have 7 of 5, because G sharp is the leading tone of A, which is our dominant, and then we get A, C sharp, E, and C sharp on the next beat, so it goes to 5. Passing 7th in the bass, F sharp, D, F sharp, A. That's a tonic triad in first inversion, D major over F sharp. Some passing tones in the inner voices. G, B, D, and B. That is a root position G major triad, or 4 passing tones in the lower voices. E, G, E, and C sharp. That is a C sharp diminished triad in first inversion. C sharp diminished over E. That would be 7-6. And then we have a perfect authentic cadence on 1. Mind you, this perfect authentic cadence isn't like Bach's usual authentic cadences where we have 5 going to 1, we have 4, 7 going to 1, which is kind of interesting. It's not as strong as 5 is going to 1. Looking ahead, we have actually kind of an interesting formal development. We have an imperfect authentic cadence here, as we're still cadencing on D major, but we have F sharp in the soprano this time as opposed to D. Okay, so we have another 1 chord here, some passing tones in the alto and the bass. And then we have F sharp, D, A, and D. That is a tonic triad still, but this time in first inversion. Passing tone in the alto. F sharp, D, F sharp, A. Again, still a D major triad in first inversion. No need to reanalyze. Passing tone in the bass. A, C sharp, E, and A. It's a root position A major triad, which is a 5 chord. A, C natural, D, and F sharp. So this is a D7 chord over A. That would be a 5-4-3 of 4, because D is the dominant of G. And if we look at the next beat, we have a D major triad over F sharp. But if we look here on 4 and, we have G, B, D, and G. There's our 4 chord. It's really interesting. F sharp, A, D, and A. That is a tonic triad in first inversion. D major over F sharp. Passing tone in the bass. D, A, E, and G. I think this D is our outlier here. C sharp, A, E, and G. That's a A7 chord over C sharp, so that would be 5-6-5. And then we cadence on 1 D major, but with F sharp in the tonic, or in the soprano. Now, if we look ahead to the next cadence, we have a cadence on A major, and this isn't a half cadence. This is actually a perfect authentic cadence. It just sounds like a perfect authentic cadence. And the melody sounds like it's in the key of A major really from the beginning. So I think this is our modulation point right here to A major. This D major triad right here is no longer 1. It's 4, because we're in the key of A major now. We now have D sharp, A, F sharp, and B. That is a B7 over D sharp, which is 5-6-5 of 5, because B is the dominant of E, and in the key of A major, It's a 5 chord. Afterwards, E, G sharp, E, and B. There's our E major chord. Passing 7th in the bass, we kind of have an interesting thing going on. We see something similar to what happened on the second. It's kind of like a kind of mocking phrase 1 in terms of the harmonic progression, because you see the same thing sort of happening here. Dominant of the dominant. Cool. Okay, C sharp, A, E, and A. That is an A major triad in first inversion, so 1-6. Then we have 4 voices moving. Let's see if we can analyze. B, D, G sharp, and B. That's a G sharp diminished triad over B. In other words, 7-6. Put that in parentheses. Then we have A, C sharp, A, and C sharp. That is a root position tonic chord. Or I guess we could just write 5-3, depending on whether or not these offbeat chords are at. Yeah, you know what? We're going to just leave this here like that. I think it's fine. Passing tone in the tenor. F sharp, A, and D. That is a D major triad in first inversion, or 4-6. Some nonchord tones going on right here. Even though we're skipping up a third, we're going to the 7th of the chord, which is interesting. It's actually kind of like a passing 5 chord. D, A, B, and A. Again, that's another, but this is a, oh yeah, that's right. So this is B minor over D, or B minor 7 over D. Bach loves his 2-6-5 chords. And then on and, we get some non-chord tones, E, E, G sharp, and B. There's our 5 chord in anticipation for a perfect authentic cadence. Pretty cool. Okay, looking ahead to the last cadence, you can probably anticipate what it is. It's a perfect authentic cadence in the key of D major, and we have this movement of A going to D at the beginning of the next phrase. So I think we've modulated. So we're going to call this B minor chord here. B, D, F sharp, and D. A 2 chord in the key of A, and we'll call it a 6 chord in the key of D minor, or D major rather. Then we'd have E, B, E, and D. I'm not going to bother analyzing that. Don't think it makes enough of a difference. 6 kind of does want to go to 2, but this is a thirdless minor triad, which is kind of interesting. A, D, E, and A. Or B rather. B, A, E, and C. I think it's this B right here that's the outlier, but then we get this F sharp on the same beat. So if this were here, we kind of have, it's kind of like 5. It's also kind of like 3, 6 as well, because we have A, F sharp, and C, which would be like an F sharp minor triad. An F sharp minor triad. Okay, so 5 or 3, 6. 3 usually wants to go to 6, not the other way around. 6 can go to 5. I think this is sort of just interrupting the texture. It's creating counterpoint, right? And then we have D, A, F sharp, and B, interestingly enough. So that would be one of Bach's 2-6-5 chords, which we love, or which he loves. We have some non-chord tones going on here. G, G, E, and B. That's kind of like a passing, well actually, sorry, did I analyze that correct? D, A, F sharp, B. I did not analyze that correctly. D, A, F sharp, and B. That would be a 6-7 chord, or a 6-6-5 rather. And then here are our non-chord tones, E, G, and B. Then we kind of have like a passing 2-6. It's interesting. Reanalyze that incorrectly on my in my notes. G, A, C sharp, and A. I think this G is a non-chord tone, and the C is also a non-chord tone. We kind of have like a 5 alighting with a 1 here. F sharp, A, D, and A. It's kind of like 1-6. but it's also kind of like 5-4-2 because we have this G in the bass. It really just depends on how you look at it. If we were analyzing this as a 5-4-2, G, A, C sharp, and A, that'd be an incomplete 5 chord with the 7 in the bass. But then it sort of turns into 1-6 on this beat. But I don't know how convinced I am that this sounds like a dominant triad. But I'll offer the analysis for those of you who disagree or think in the other way. It's not really a disagreement, it's just an alternative analysis. G, G, B, and B, or rather G, 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 B, and B. That is a root position G major triad or a 4 chord. Then we have 4 moving voices here. A, F sharp, C, and A. That's like a 3-6 chord. F sharp minor over A. And then we have B, D, D, and G. It's like 4-6, which turns into 5-3 on this beat with the passing 7th and the soprano. And then we have A, D, and E. Of course, this D is a suspension. It's a 4-3 suspension over the bass. This is a big 5 chord. Then we have some counterpoint getting ready for the final chord in the cadence, the 1 chord. All in all, my analysis for this section is kind of interesting. There's this idea of like 1 chords turning into 3 chords, or 6 chords turning into 3 chords, or 5 chords turning into 3 chords. This idea that it's kind of hard for the harmony to get analyzed in a definitive fashion because the texture in this section is very contrapuntal, not straightforward at all. But all in all, the rest of the analysis was very straightforward. I think the fact that Bach explored D, explored the key of the dominant, it's a very formally or structurally sound chorale that didn't really leave me a lot of interpretation for when the modulations happened. I'd say there are some interesting progressions in here for sure. Yeah, that's really all I have to say about it. It's a very quaint and delightful chorale to analyze. I'm a fan of the melody. But that being said, thank you so much for watching the video. I appreciate your continued support of the channel. I really enjoyed this analysis, and I look forward to tomorrow's analysis as well. Thank you for watching. Take care.